This is our two favorite pastors on this channel. Is it Jamal Murray and Jamal Bryant? Are they both named Jamal? I don't know. But this is episode 1 of Murphy's Law. And I thought this was a very interesting podcast that I have a lot of thoughts on, that I'm sure you also will probably have a lot of thoughts on. Now, Jamal Bryant is the infamous swag surfing pastor. Everyone saw the swag surfing video from New Year's Eve. It's so interesting to me that they're still talking about it. They're still talking about it. It's like, I'm like, bro, I don't know. They're still talking about it. So I wasn't planning on talking about it again, because I think I made like 3 or 4 videos about it already, but they're still talking about it. And I think it's interesting, the perspective that they have on it. And I want to give my 2 cents. All right. So let's get into this video. I think what I'll do, I'm going to speed this up so we can kind of get through it a little bit faster. But let's get into it.
For your future. I'm excited to take this journey with you. I need you to do me a favor. I want you to be committed to listen and to see it every week. And I want you to share with all of your friends and all of your family. Today, I've got somebody who I need to clear up some stuff with. You want to hear this conversation? I'm telling you, it ain't black or white. It's red. It's blood everywhere. When you hear the name Bishop William Murphy. He's my brother. He's my friend. And right now, he's Hester Prynne from the Scarlet Letter because he has been thrown out.
I'm sorry. It's William Murphy. I don't know why I thought it was Jamal Murphy. It's William Murphy.
Of everything. But I want to be clear that I love him no matter what he says today. He is still my friend. William, thank you for hanging out with me on the day.
Let's be clear.
Let's be clear.
Let's be clear.
Yes.
We are excited about this opportunity to be with you.
Yes.
What God continues to do through you.
Oh, yes. Talk, Bishop.
Is you've always been a forerunner.
Yes.
And I'm grateful, man. Just it makes sense that the first podcast is the two of us talking.
It does.
And so I'm excited to be here. Thank you for. There's a bunch of other folk you could have had on today.
Nobody else I could have had on today.
This was God.
Yes.
This was God.
You have kicked down 2024 with Timberland boots.
Listen.
You're from Detroit. I'm from Baltimore. Let's just jump right into it, because the last few weeks.
Oof. Man,
you have been Tom Brokaw with Headline News.
Oh, my goodness.
And I really want to be clear on what is the church for this generation.
Yes.
What is the church for culture? What is church for society?
Yes.
And I want to move backwards. You started off the year doing a baby dedication.
Man,
no, you did a baby dedication for 2 icons of the culture.
No. First, I started off the year saying, let our uncle that we don't really agree with still come to Thanksgiving dinner. That was
Who's
the first
our
thing.
uncle?
I'm not no names. Just
no, we got to be clear. Who is the uncle?
Let's be clear. So the first controversy was around Bishop Carlton Pearson.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, this brother to brother, I was talking to my church. Completely honest with you, all of my PR people said, don't bring up Carlton Pearson, don't bring up the dedication, and don't bring up New Year's Eve.
And I want to be clear, you brought up Carlton Pearson. I didn't bring him up. I tried to jump over
Well,
him.
since you was talking, I just figured, because it's been 3 weeks.
It's been 3 weeks. So for those of you who don't go to church and have no idea who Carlton Pearson is, Carlton Pearson was defrocked by the African American College of Bishops for believing in inclusion and saying that there was no hell for people to go to. He died very recently after a battle with cancer. Bishop Murphy was one of the soloists at his funeral, and then came back home. Yes,
soloist. You dating yourself, man?
You a psalmist?
I'm not even.
Hold on. This guy, he didn't believe that there was a hell. I don't know who he is. Maybe this is for another video where I can look at that. Okay, continue.
Guest artist at a funeral.
Okay.
I don't know how you put that together. He's a guest artist at a funeral.
I did an A and B selection.
He only did A. He came back home.
Actually, I didn't do an A because I gave my time back because it got a little long.
So you didn't sing at all?
But I didn't sing at all. I was supposed to at the request of his daughter, Majesty.
Yes.
Which is the segue into how we got here. Because both of us have this call to this generation, to this church. So Bishop Pearson's daughter, Majesty, who has, I think, one of the most cutting edge ministries. She's an up and coming soloist.
Yes.
And she just released some music out there. Majesty, you owe me. I just gave you a free plug. And so some kind of way we connected. Social media, she connected to my ministry. And when Bishop passed away, I reached out to say, hey, love you, praying for you. If you need anything, blah, blah, blah. She asked, it would really be an honor if you would come and minister at my dad's celebration of life. Of course, Dee and I jumped on a plane, went to Tulsa, and I was just really moved by the lack of presence. And my conversation was around, we all have an uncle who says stuff that's off the wall that we don't agree with, but bet nobody else say nothing about him. Right. And the heart of that conversation was that we're serving a generation who does not feel safe in church. That the way that the church has handled our beloved, the way that the church has handled our most valued assets after they have displayed some type of humanity is just unsafe to people who have never been exposed to church culture. Yeah. So my conversation, Dr. Bryant, was around, as a church, we've got to be intentional about creating safe space for people who have never heard the message of the gospel, which was Jesus's whole, that was his whole flow. Yeah. And of course, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious order of the day, took issue with Jesus because he was always creating safe space for people who had never heard the message of the gospel. And so that was my whole argument, even with our daughters, Jessica and
Don't jump all the way in there yet. Hold on.
Okay.
So Bernice King's first book was Hard Questions, Heart Answers.
Wow.
And one of the things that you have ripped the Band-Aid off is the church's inability to just have conversation.
Yes.
And yes. People will take just one clip, one post,
90
one
seconds.
segment, yes, and say that is the full summary of what your theology is.
Right.
And what I really wanted you to talk about is how we can have compassion while disagreeing.
It's the currency of the kingdom.
Yes.
I think, Dr. Bryant, this is so key. And honestly, you and I, we have very transparent conversations. I'm excited about this podcast because it's going to be a safe space for people to have fully transparent conversations without the judgment.
Yeah.
That a lot of us are still working through our theology. I'm a few months away from graduating with a Master's of Divinity from
Awesome.
Virginia Union University, from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. And just the other night, we were talking about what they call ATRs, African Traditional Religions. There are about 3,000 or more of them. And the thought of it is, the concept is that there is no separating what is secular and what is spiritual. Because everywhere I go, I take God with me. Everywhere I go, I take the gospel with me. So there is no separation between what is secular and what is spiritual. How I've articulated it is, we redeem everything. That we don't let the devil just take culture from us, and all we can ever do is a little church dance that probably 75% of Gen Zs can't even relate to. They've never seen it. Mama didn't grow up in church, grandmama half went. And so we're now tasked to win a generation who doesn't know who C.L. Franklin is, who doesn't know who Samuel DeWitt Proctor is.
Right.
We're now ministering to a generation. There arose another king who didn't know Joseph.
Yes.
So we've been here before. And so now I'm faced with, what do I do with a same gender loving couple who now has a child who wants to dedicate that child back to God? Is the child the...
So I don't know if y'all know what he's talking about completely, but I believe it was it Brat? I don't know who Brat is married to, the rapper Brat. But he did the dedication for their child. Let me see if I can find it. Brat William Murphy dedication. Pastor William Murphy isn't pleased. Hold on. It's not on. It's probably on TikTok. I'm pretty sure it's on TikTok. Let me find it. Nope. Well, this is the pictures right here. So you got the Brat, and then you got her wife, and then you got the baby. And and then you got William Murphy doing the dedication for the baby, and then you got them kissing, which is where I'll end it. So just for some context, this is what he's talking about. Oh, sorry.
Loving couple who now has a child who wants to dedicate that child back to God. Is the child the sin? This is what's not safe, because I've seen all kind of stuff. Well, now I believe in the word is I married them.
Yes.
I didn't perform the wedding. I dedicated the baby.
Right.
Y'all say this with me. I dedicated a baby. Those are our daughters. We're walking with them. We love them. I know the scripture talks about how can two walk together except they agree.
Right.
But we can agree to disagree as well.
The nexus, Bishop, of the African traditional religions that you also see in Native American religions,
yes,
and South American religions and West Indian, is a little bit skewed from the premise you're raising it, because they are dealing with the secular and the sacred in terms of the wind is sacred, the trees are sacred,
right,
the
right,
water is sacred.
Right.
Where you found yourself in the epicenter of the storm is walk it out.
Yeah.
So they would say that's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's not what they're saying.
In separating that sacred and the secular.
Right.
So let's go back to Carlton Pearson.
Okay.
So Carlton Pearson, your call to the church was the absence of compassion, even while disagreeing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That the off uncles still get to come to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
He gonna bring macaroni and cheese.
Yes.
But nobody's gonna eat it.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. This safe family dynamic that I think we have abandoned, because if I can't agree with you, then I can have no love or compassion,
right,
or even proximity
yes,
to you. And I think that was what got Jesus killed, is that he was raising these issues of being around people that were not quote unquote religious or sanctified, or whatever the language would have been back in that day, that he was very intentional about being in spaces where proximity would create relationship. I think the church has been extremely guilty of cleaning fish before we catch the fish.
As you are a recording artist, you are a pastor, an intercessor, you're a father.
Yes.
What brings you at the center of the conversation is you are a bishop in the Lord's church.
Yes.
So
a defender of the faith.
Yeah, the defender of the faith, or is what they call a prince of the church.
A prince of the church.
And being the prince of the church, what then is the message as a bishop, not as an overseer, as a pastor, as a district elder, as a bishop, to confront the culture, doctrine, theology of a black church prism that says we don't discuss LGBTQ. We do discuss it. What is the role of the bishop to swag surf? What is the role of the bishop of dedicating a baby from two same gender loving couples? Wow. Is that this is not just a pastor, but somebody who gives oversight to the direction and to the theology of the church.
Absolutely.
So you are not Citizen Joe.
Right. And even in this context, I'm not Mr. Praise is what I do.
Right.
I'm an apologist. I'm a defender of the faith.
Yes.
And my conviction about it, Dr. Bryant, is the conviction of Paul, that we have to be all things to all people, that I can have fellowship with you and not believe what you believe.
Yes.
Somebody asked me, people have like super courage on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody asked me, well, why are you trying to get, because of course people didn't like the fact that I said 150 people got saved. What's your problem? And so the clapback was, well, why you getting them saved if you don't believe in hell? Well, I never said I didn't believe in hell.
Right.
I just said, let Uncle Carlton come to Thanksgiving dinner and don't eat the macaroni.
Yes.
Because it's off. And that's no shade. But I think that there can be a difference of opinion, and yet you raised the term, there can still be compassion and love, because at the end of the day, the word on the street, and this is of course the clip that they didn't show, the word on the street is the church is not safe. And of course, in this dispensation where everybody has a therapist, one of the key concepts is you got to get somewhere safe. You got to find your safe space. I'm saying the church, because we've been so, I'm just going to say it, because we've been so bound by religion and what was. Think about this. There are churches that are still fighting over women wearing pants, when the Bible clearly was talking about if there were no pants when the Bible was written. So if they want to hold to that scripture. We got to all put dresses on. It's out of context. And I think as a bishop in the Lord's church, what I didn't understand, I'll be completely honest with you, what I didn't understand was the weight of my voice, was the weight of our assignment in terms of leading the church forward. Yeah. The church, in a lot of ways, has been another Republican Party. That what they're saying to me, like the Republicans are saying stuff about Trump in private, that's what a lot of pastors have done with me. They sent messages like, bro, do you, be you leading us, we watching. Break the walls down.
Yeah, but I don't want the Nicodemus support that's going to DM you.
Yeah, like you got, and let me go and shout out my homeboy, Pastor Dietrich Haddon, came out, and of course they killed him too. He's a demon too. But at the end of the day, the Dream Center Church of Atlanta is not Kappa Alpha Psi. It's not a fraternity. It's supposed to grow.
Right.
We are supposed to draw people of all thoughts and culture and concept. It's not some members only club. The whole point of the church is to make disciples. And we've had some folk question that. Well, 150 people didn't get saved. They just joined your church. Really, bro? Like again, just further demonstrating that the church is just not safe. And all I'm saying is we've got to be safe to a generation that feels threatened by religion. And I'm not saying that we throw away our traditions.
Right.
My grandfather, we laughed about this. My grandfather, God bless his soul, when Dee and I moved here 22 years ago, I preached that Sunday at my dad's church. Dee preached that Sunday at my granddad's church.
Oh, wow.
When she went into the pulpit to preach, she had to put on a doily.
Wow.
I mean, so I come from,
yes,
deep Baptist roots, but my grandfather was also one of the first Baptist preachers to ordain and license female clergy.
Wow.
He was also one of the first Baptist preachers to lay hands and speak in tongues. He was also one of the first Baptist preachers to have a Yamaha DX7. Only my musicians know what I'm talking about here. I mean, that was the devil.
Right.
Think about this, Dr. Bryant. 5 years ago, Facebook was the devil.
Yeah.
I mean, just the church has been so unsafe to a generation who really is seeking relationship with God, but the way that we have positioned it, it just doesn't make sense to them. And I'm saying we've got to be more intentional about fusing culture with the call of Christ.
To be clear, knowing the weight now of your words,
yes,
and your presence,
oh my goodness,
that you are, we never put it in sacred space, but that you are a social media influencer.
Yeah.
Not about food or for tennis shoes,
oh my
but
goodness,
for the direction of the church.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
Oh my goodness.
A month later, would you swag surf again?
150 people.
That's not bad. I know what happened. Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Even with the cost of it?
Absolutely.
So you think that it balances itself out?
I think that it forces the church to have a conversation.
We've had the conversation.
No, we have not.
Yeah,
you and I.
The whole Instagram has had the conversation.
No, people are throwing insults and they're fighting.
I got it. Yes.
I had to get off TikTok the other day because my folks were fighting with folks who were throwing insults.
Yes.
And again, so this coming Sunday, third Sunday in January, Dee and I will celebrate 18 years we've been leading this church. 18 years. Tens of thousands of people have made a decision to walk with God. All of them didn't stay, but literally tens of thousands of people, because of the ministry of the Dream Center Church of Atlanta, have come into relationship with the Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
18 years of successful ministry. And other Christians, and it wasn't all the church, but the church really led the attack.
Right.
Other Christians took a 90-second clip and drew a carnal conclusion for 18 years of ministry. And it is the picture of the church that we have to talk about, that we have to address. So absolutely, I would do it again. Didn't like the insults, but I'm anointed. I can deal with that. I can manage that. I believe the whole point of this, Dr. Bryant, was to move the church forward so that we can have a conversation that causes us to really address culture, church culture, secular culture. Like what are we doing? Like people really got offended because I was celebrating 150 people getting saved. Like people were offended by that. And
I don't think they were offended by 150 people getting saved.
No, they were offended by it. Some of them were offended by it because they haven't had 150 people all year.
And that's what they were offended by.
Yes.
They were offended by, Bishop.
Yes.
That for you was the justification for the swag surf.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but the platform his following, even my following, his church congregation, the numbers that he just spoke of, tens of thousands of people. Just because we have the platform, it doesn't mean that God's hand is on it. I think we make that mistake of thinking that, oh, I'm talking about God, I'm in ministry, so, and I'm successful in ministry, and people are coming to my church, so that must mean that God's hand is on it. That's not always an indication. That's not always an indication. Because some people are good at the business of church, but that doesn't mean that God's hand is on it. They're just good at the business of church. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that God's hand is on it. Look at Jeremiah. Look at the prophet Jeremiah. The prophet Jeremiah, clearly God's hand was all over the life of Jeremiah. I was reading the Bible the other day. It said that Jeremiah, he had something like maybe at the most like 3 followers. There was 3 people in Jeremiah's life that believed in what he was doing. So by his definition, Jeremiah's ministry was a failure because only 3 people on earth believed in his ministry and what he was doing. But clearly we know that that's not true. Jeremiah is literally a prophet in the Bible. There's a book written about, what he had to do in his life, about the prophecies, about how God was using him. Clearly, God's hand was on the life of Jeremiah. But when you looked at it from a worldly perspective, you saw, oh, there's only 3 people that subscribe to Jeremiah. He only has 3 followers. Okay, God must not be in that. But it's quite the opposite. So we can't just say like, oh, my congregation's big, my following's big. I have people who I have thousands of people who come to my church every single day. This must be anointed. This must be a Holy Spirit filled place. That's not true. That's not true. And I think more and more on social media, we see all of these people on social media who are talking about God, who are in ministry, who are, whatever they're doing, they say they're doing it for God. And maybe they might be, but there's so many people who have a platform, but maybe they're just good at social media. Maybe they're just good at building a platform. That doesn't mean that God told them to do it. That doesn't mean that God's hand is on it. Maybe it does, but don't always assume that the big number, the big following is an indication that God is moving in that environment, because that may not be the case.
No, but listen, you have to think in context.
Let's be clear.
The average church is 50 people.
Right.
So you were saying because of the 150, it justifies the end. And I think that's where it was thrown off, because the overwhelming majority of people would not have seen 150.
Right.
And so for me, as your brother, I was burdened because in that snapshot, they got the swag surf, they walked it out, but nowhere in it did they get the message.
Right. They didn't get Acts chapter 3.
Yes.
Where Peter and John said, stand up and walk.
Right.
Which is how we got to walk it out.
Yes.
And they grabbed him by the right hand and they walked out with him, which is how we got to swag and surf. It was a prophetic.
Oh, I went back and listened to the whole thing. I needed to have it.
Yeah. So you could.
Yes.
So you could defend the faith.
Yes.
But and again, it is what we have to address as a church.
Yes.
Because we're drawing conclusions about people's lives from one episode.
Yes.
And we don't know the story of people's lives. And so people come into our context, they come into our church, and we judge people without really looking at the whole story. And so I just think the conversation, number one, I do it again because I'm an evangelist. I'm really about this whole soul winning thing. That's my assignment. We going to get them.
Yeah.
Our church is expanding to Buckhead. We'll be there this Sunday at 8:00. Our church is expanding. We're expanding to another side. We're going down 20. Our church is expanding. We don't have room to put people. We got to find a bigger place to hold people. We're full at 10. We're full at 12. We got to find more space.
Right.
Why? It's not because I'm some witch. It's not because I'm some demon.
Right.
If you've been in my church for 10 minutes, you cannot deny
Absolutely.
that the glory of God lives there. And that's nothing. That's not because I'm such a good person. It's and this goes back to this is going to be the whole defense of my dissertation when I go for my doctorate, that we've set this order of worship in proper biblical order. The outer court is where all of the stuff, the interactions happen between worshiper to worshiper. That's where you can walk it out. That's where you can swag surf, in the outer court. All of that stuff happens in the place where there's the exchanges from worshiper to worshiper.
Yeah.
But then after that, then you get access to the inner court, which is the place where there's this exchange from worshiper to God. And after there's this exchange from worshiper to God, a lot of churches never get to the place where there's an exchange from the worshiper to God. And if we don't get from worshiper to God, we never get from God to worshiper.
Right.
So which is why we're so personality driven. It's what God has done in our church. You my homie. You know all the know where all the bodies buried.
Yes.
This ain't got nothing to do with me. This is God demonstrating to a generation that you don't have to be perfect to be used. That you don't have to have it all right. That you don't have to be error free to be used of God in a significant way. I don't know who's watching this, but just grab a hold of that. That's for you, because the enemy's tried to tell you, because of your mistakes and because of what you're struggling with right now, that you are not useful. He is a liar. I got a whole t-shirt. If the devil's talking to you, he's lying to you. Just hold on to that. And so all of these conversations, even if you go back and you look at, we're 18 years old, so we're revisiting some of the foundations of how we got started. And some of the verbiage when we got started was to create a safe haven for people who want to be in relationship with God, but just don't really fit in the traditional model of the church. And so we've created safe space for people to fuse their life with their relationship with God.
In creating this template for worship.
Yes.
That I think is absolutely brilliant, from the outer court to inner court to Holy of Holies.
It's Exodus 25.
And knowing where those separations are.
Right.
Where then do you say is the separation? Because not the lay people giving pot shots on Instagram or TikTok.
Right.
For the generals of the church, for the fathers of the church.
Absolutely.
Where is the separation then, Bishop, between the secular and the sacred, and giving that safe space, but knowing that they are not the same?
Right.
So how do I separate that I'm in the world, but I'm not of it? I think was the clash from the pulpit, not from the balcony.
Right. So, and I'm glad you brought that up. The 29th of February is the opening night of what I call Demonstrate. And the Lord told me to demonstrate that people are watching by Facebook, they're watching on YouTube, but they still don't get it. That you've got to create space for pastors to sit, to ask questions, for you to walk them through the revelation of the tabernacle. It's Exodus 25. I didn't come up with it. It's right laid out there, where he talks to Abram and says, create a sanctuary where I may dwell. The first issue is, when we come in church, we talk about welcome into this place. He lives here.
Yeah.
This is his house. We shouldn't have to welcome God into his house. What are we doing that we have to invite God to come home? So I'm going to be talking about that February 28th and March 1st. I'm literally going to be sitting with pastors. Some pastors, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say, man. Come on.
Right.
I'm gonna walk you through the revelation of how to create a 1-hour experience where people can encounter God in a real way and go back to their life and be better. That's all this is about. So I'm talking about the difference in the outer court, that those exchanges where, and this is what God said to me. Church should not be China. It should not be some foreign country that we walk into where people have no idea what's going on. The miracle of Acts chapter 2 is not that everybody spoke in tongues. The miracle of Acts chapter 2 is that everybody heard the message of the gospel in their language. That's the miracle of Acts chapter 2. That's not the only miracle. It's not the biggest miracle. The biggest miracle is right around, you got to go all the way to the end of the chapter, right around verse 43, where Peter starts preaching. And because of what they had encountered, because they had already heard the message in their language, not in my language. I'm not trying to get you to understand the gospel the way I understood it.
Right.
I've got to communicate the message of the gospel in your native language. If you came up in the hood, you don't know the hymns of the church. So when you walk in my church, you're going to hear something that you heard on the radio. When you walk in my church, because here, 2 words, I want you to write this down. It's got to be relatable and it's got to be palatable. See, we just keep doing what we've always done, and we love it because it's what we grew up in.
Right.
We love it, but there.
Did he say when you walk into my church, you're going to hear secular music?
Communicate the message of the gospel in your native language. If you came up in the hood, you don't know the hymns of the church. So when you walk in my church, you're going to hear something that you heard on the radio. When you walk in my church, because here, 2 words, I want you to write this down. It's got to be
Yeah, but okay. So he's trying to make the argument that, hey, somebody who didn't grow up in the church, they're not going to be attracted to go to church because it's not speaking their language. It's not relating to them. They're not going to feel connected to it. So how can we make them feel connected to it? Well, we can bring what they know, in this example, music, secular music, we can bring that into the church so that they can feel a connection in church. Okay, but what are they connecting to exactly? Because that music is not of God. It does not glorify God. So what are they connecting to? They're connecting to those spirits within that music. They're not connecting to God. Okay? So but that might be, oh, well, this is what's keeping them in the building, and then we follow up with the word, and that's how we really, evangelize, and that's how we really reach the lost, right? Okay, but like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. God became man. His name is Jesus Christ. God became human. His name is Jesus Christ. There's a clear connection point right there. Every human on earth who is walking into church can connect and can relate to Jesus Christ because he has felt and experienced every temptation, every emotion that we have gone through. He has walked in our shoes. He knows what it's like. There's nothing that we're experiencing that God has not experienced in Jesus Christ. There's nothing. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Go through the Gospels. Let them see the personhood of Jesus Christ. These people who you're talking about, oh, they're not going to stay in church because it doesn't sound like what they're used to. Okay, well, make it relatable to them through the personhood of Jesus Christ, not through secular music, which is controlled and authored by demonic spirits. That's my thing. I understand we have to reach the lost, but I think there's a way in doing that that is profitable and unprofitable. If we're reaching the lost by playing secular music in church, sure, we might get a handful of people who are attracted to that, who may not have ever came to church, but okay, what's that ultimately doing to the congregation as a whole? What is that teaching the people who we brought in? Oh, that we can use secular activities, that we can use sinful behavior in order to evangelize. Okay, so if I'm sitting out on the street and somebody's doing crack, I could sit next to them and do crack and then tell them the gospel, and that's okay if they give their life to Jesus. This is the thought process that is being presented. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't.
And it's got to be palatable. See, we just keep doing what we've always done, and we love it because it's what we grew up in.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, some people are good at the business of church, building a church, financing a church, growing a church, getting donations and tithes and offerings from the congregation. Some people are good at the business of building a church, but did God really tell you that in order to reach the lost, you have to play secular music in your building? I don't know.
Right.
We love it, but there are people whose grandmama didn't bring them to church. Yeah. There are people whose mother never came to church and their friend brought them. What are you doing that when they walk in your church, they hear something that they can relate to, that makes them feel safe, that makes them feel included? So we have a time.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the personhood of Jesus Christ. Like, you can't tell me, listen, read the Gospels, you will be impacted. You will relate to it. God will speak to you. The Holy Spirit will reveal himself to you. If your heart is postured in that direction and if you're open to it. And we have to, like, people have to take personal accountability. Like, I'm not going to sit here and stoop down to your level. And I understand the scripture. You know, Paul was saying that he was everything to everybody so that he can win them over. But I'm not going to stoop down to your level and participate in your sin and glorify that lifestyle in order to win you over. I don't have to stoop down to your level. I have an example that we all can relate to, and that's Jesus Christ. God literally became flesh. He literally became one of us so that he could relate to us on that level personally, one to one. And he wants a personal relationship with you. That's what we should be leading with. We shouldn't be leading with the worldly stuff. We should be leading with Jesus Christ.
I stole this from Bishop, a time called Pass the Peace. Y'all still do Pass the Peace?
We still do it.
Every Sunday, Pass the Peace. But we're not singing Just Want to Thank You for Pass the Peace. We're not singing You Reign for Pass the Peace. Right. It might be Frankie Beverly. It might be, it's something that
Meg the Stallion. He was playing Meg the Stallion, that one video that I made. I don't know what the context was because I didn't receive very much context from that video, but they were playing Meg the Stallion in that video. I don't know what was going on.
Arms the non-believer, because sound, it either, watch this. Corinthians says I think it's 12:7 or something like that. If what is being harped or piped doesn't give a distinction in the sound, who will know whether to charge or to retreat? And we get up and say, y'all want to have church today. No, right. It's because what you're communicating is not palatable.
Wow.
I can't relate to it. So I don't know what to do. I just stand there. Not that I don't want to be here. I don't know what's going on. I can't relate. And
that relatability, Bishop, I think missed on your critics, detractors, and bloggers is one thing I've been waiting 3 weeks for somebody to pick up.
Wow.
And nobody has brought it up. And I wanted to bring it up today, is the significance that you were doing it in that pulpit with your son. And I think everybody everybody missed what that meant for a generation. You just turned 50. Your son is how old?
23.
23.
Just turned 23 in
Yes.
December.
So to see 2 generations embroiled.
I get it. I think that there's a way in which that we should seek to relate to non-believers, and I don't think that's the way to go about it, in my opinion.